What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Ball Up Top, a women's basketball podcast presented to you by your friends here at No Cap Space. Tyler and Andrew here, holding it down for you. First off, before we dive into anything, we got to do our reminders. You know what time it is. Like, subscribe, share, wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching, and of course, the free newsletter, No Cap Space WBB.com. There's been a ton of content coming your way from the website. There's been a ton of content coming here on YouTube. If this is where you're watching. And of course, we're floating the podcast feed as well. So really, wherever you consume No Cap Space, make sure you're tapped in all the way. Andrew, man, what a week. It's been a week. We've had boots in Austin. We've had boots in Nashville.
More boots in Nashville. I'll be on hand for Texas Vanderbilt on Thursday. Potentially AU on Wednesday night. I'm still deciding if I want to come up, but man, we've been rolling. We're not even talking.
Dude, we're gonna be doing this till April
6th.
Because keep in mind, we go live every night during March Madness. So
oh my goodness,
the marathon feels like it's already started. Yeah. But I'm having a blast. It's been a fun time. Make sure you tell my good pal Vic hello for me.
Make sure I get a copy. Make sure I get his jacket for you.
Oh, dude,
I'll run off of this jacket.
I will hang it up in my background. Like it'll go up in the rafters right here. I'll tell you, Andrew. You know who is not having fun? Anyone who's in the CBA negotiations. We're gonna start here. We'll make our way to college. I am tired, Andrew. I'm tired. I'm tired of the negotiations. I'm tired of the talks. To be completely honest, I was someone that was like, okay, well, if the WNBA doesn't happen this year, like a month, if I'm talking months ago, like when I'm in this frame of mind, I'm like, that would suck, first and foremost. Don't want that. But in terms of like momentum, like I was like, I think that it can be survivable, like in that way, where it's like if it really comes down to it, the league, the players, the star power, like that means something now more than ever. I'm not gonna lie, I never really thought it was gonna actually like be a possibility though, frankly. And here we are, currently recording this on February 10th. It feels more and more real by the day that at minimum a strike is going to happen, Andrew. And I'm tired. And I'm frankly getting nervous. I'm getting nervous about the state of this season and what it's going to be. I still think we're going to have games. I think that maybe a delay at this point is going to be inevitable just because the amount of business that has to get done. But the way that the WNBA has gone about these negotiations is icky, to say the least, in the terms of not responding for weeks on end, coming back and you saw like the league graphs that came out and things of that nature. And like you're offering some good things, but ultimately missing one key thing, Andrew, and that's numbers. And that's the real numbers and percentages and how that works. So Andrew, as our CBA aficionado here, I come to you trying to find some hope right now, trying to find some light, or maybe not. Maybe it just doesn't exist right now, Andrew. I would just love to know, generally speaking, is a WNBA strike going to happen? Is it the right thing to happen? Like, where are you currently when you're seeing all this negotiation stuff going out?
It doesn't really make me feel confident that we're going to get to a place without a delay. I think that it's inevitable that this will be a shortened season, and everybody's just got to make their peace with that now. Yeah. It's going to happen. I do not believe, however, that this tanks momentum for women's basketball as a whole. I think that's a pro owner talking point. I think it's understandable for people who are more predisposed to order than chaos, want order. And the potential for chaos is an uncomfortable thing for them. And thus, going back to what you know, which is players playing, but playing for less than what they are worth, is the order that you are aware of relative to the chaos of what a stoppage could be. But the fight of this is not taking the momentum of women's basketball and stopping it in its tracks for something that isn't worthwhile. And that's what we have to always remember here. this is a worthwhile fight for the players. This is not a work stoppage happening because the players said we already have a 51-49 net revenue split. Now we want 60-40. This is, we want 30 at the absolute most. We want housing for our players that are developmental players. And that's going to be a new thing in the WNBA for those that are not aware. And this is something Brianna Stewart talked to CBS Sports about just earlier this week, is the way housing works in the W. Under the last CBA, they had to provide housing stipends or housing for players that were either kind of like 10-day contract type players. We call them hardship players in the WNBA, or first-year rookie scale players who made $70,000 a year but had trouble affording a apartment in New York or San Francisco, which look, man, there's a lot of people in those big cities that are making do with less. And I don't want to sit here and say, won't somebody think of the people that are making a lot of money, right? But I believe if you're a professional athlete, you probably should be able to afford that stuff on your own. How are you able to afford that stuff on your own if you're not one of the top earners in terms of sponsorships and name, image, and likeness and things that you're getting outside of the basketball? Well, you got to get paid something commensurate for that. The developmental part of what the WNBA is offering is effectively 2 additional roster spots for players that play a certain amount of games. They can't cross a specific threshold before being signed as, you know, a main player. Yeah. It is. It's the two-way, or what Unrivaled does right now, where you have players from a pool that you can pull and bring in. And for all the people that want to poo-poo Unrivaled, the fact that in this most recent response from the WNBA, they tweaked the housing component where players can now get a 1-bedroom apartment or developmental players get a studio apartment. That's a move from the league. We're getting hung up on the money here. But the things happening under the surface, those are the things in the last 2 CBAs players fought really hard for.
Yeah.
And have also shown a willingness, mind you, to budge on if the quality of life components, from pensions to retirements to housing stipends to medical care, prenatal care, maternity care, postnatal care, like all of those things are things that are a little bit unique to women's sports versus men's sports, because men aren't pumping out babies. They don't need paternity leave in professional sports. We are not getting pregnant for 9 months and have to have a league help us out with how that works contractually. So there's just a lot of different living adjustments that you have to consider that are valid for these women to put at the top of their list. Because when you take away the money piece of it, the league needs to be the people that help give you certain living standards that these other leagues have. And if we're talking about making women's basketball a sport in which they feel like they are professionals, then yes, the money they are making makes them entitled to some of the same standards and then some that men's sports have. And when I say the money they are making, we are talking about through franchise valuations that we have seen, through every single indicator absent opening the WNBA's books publicly that show there is some profit being made here, at least in the last 2 years, right? We talked last week, and our investigative story on the Chicago Sky, which you can find on this channel and on No Cap Space WBB.com, that Angel Reese's rookie year, according to sources, was the first year in the Sky's history that they have turned an operational profit. So for everybody that is trying to use old numbers, use old Adam Silver press clippings, we have information like through sources that we trust that the one franchise that basically everybody equates to being the broke boy franchise of the WNBA, they made money.
They made money.
They made money.
Yeah.
So take that. Take the fact that the Connecticut Sun were making money 20 years ago.
Talk to them.
Now you're in a place where the 2 broke boy franchises, from a perception standpoint, they have tangible, legitimate evidence that shows you they make money.
Yeah.
And that's before we get into the franchises that are actually making money, or at least we could see actually making money, like the Las Vegas Aces, Seattle Storm, New York Liberty, Phoenix Mercury, Golden State Valkyries, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So I still believe that the players are on the right side of this fight by not caving, this late in the game, because the threat of a work stoppage is on the horizon. This is what labor action looks like. It's messy. It's chaotic. It upends the system. And there are places where there is give here. I'm not a monster. I'm not an advocate for shutting all of this down to make a point, because I do understand, A, these women have families and they got to make livings and have livelihoods. B, it affects our bottom line as No Cap Space WBB.
Come on now, man. Look, man, we're no cap space for a reason.
Season.
We're not cap space WBB.
I'm not going to sit here and act like there isn't a degree of self-interest in wanting to see a season go off the ground.
Absolutely.
Me personally. However, I believe we're in the place now where it's time to see the give from the player side, right? So if the desire is getting that net revenue, right? Getting the gross revenue.
Mm-hmm.
If that is the sticking point, if 30 is the sticking point here, we're at a place where I think you as the players should go down to 25 or 27 and see what the give is from the WNBA side of things, right? Yeah. Because if you've gotten them to move on these things, now the way a good faith negotiation works is now it's time for you to drop down and see where the give is. Because I've always said, you can go back on past shows, past columns, I have always been of the mindset 20% is the magic number. 20% of the gross revenue, sharing that in this CBA is the magic number for the CBA. Do I think in the long term that's what you want forever in perpetuity? No. I think that the logical endpoint 10, 15, 20 years from now is the 51-49 split or 52-48 split that a league like the NBA has, for instance. But for where we are right now, yeah, I want you to be willing to budge, but 20% when you previously have not had any feels like the place where I would say, okay, if they're giving you all of the quality of life things and they're giving you 20% of gross revenue, enough's enough. Roll the ball out, sign the contracts, let's do the thing. Yeah. Or if you want to try and call the league's bluff and say, all right, cool, net revenue, give us 90. Like that's what I would say. Because for people at home, what the league is offering is 70% of the net revenue. So when you take all of the operating expenses out, so the money that the WNBA makes on its top line, then you take out the expenses, what is left over is the net. What the WNBPA wants and what exists in other sports, mind you, is a percentage of the gross revenue. So basically what the league makes before you take out operating expenses. And that is called in NBA circles, basketball related income. They take the portion of that money that, the gross revenue, they divvy it up, decide what is BRI, and then they make the split based on that. If I were the players, I would say, I'll be willing to come down on gross revenue, which you previously have said as a non-starter. We either go down in gross or we go up in net.
Yeah.
And pick. Because if this is the issue now where it's like, we're not going to do this at all, I think you have to play hardball with them in the sense that if there's going to be give, there's going to be take. So either you are willing to give us less of the gross or more of the net. And if the league budges on either of those, exactly what the sticking point is. And if the sticking point is we just don't even want you to touch the gross revenue at all, well, then we're talking about something substantially different, in terms of work stoppages and what the overall health is for this league going forward. Yeah. I'm hopeful. I don't think the league's going to die here. I don't think anybody wants that to happen. I think what Stewie said and what Caitlin Clark said a couple weeks ago, I think it all points to, a strong coalition here. Do I think they've played all this perfectly? No. I think they've sat on their hands a little bit from a perspective of like being in the news every day, making content every day. They needed an editorial director.
I wanted to ask you,
high key, they needed the media. And and this is the unrivaled issue that I have too, is like when we talk about what players want media to be, they don't want us to be invasive. They want it on their own terms and all of those things. And that's fine, man. If you want that, that's cool. We don't have to bug you and first takeify your life. However, media serves a vital purpose. And we are, I wouldn't even say useful idiots. I think in the sense that media is used to influence public agenda and opinion. Yes, I believe we do that. One way or the other, we do that because everybody has some inherent bias and personal belief about something they agree with or disagree with, right? It's why I can disagree with Dave Portnoy on 99.9% of things and never have to hand it to him on anything whatsoever. But on this particular thing, Dave Portnoy and I are saying the same thing. That the players are making money, and it's unequivocally obvious they're making money, and thus they should be paid commensurate to what type of money they're making for the league, you know? And when you ignore that, when you don't think you need it, that's how you end up with 2.5 months of radio silence. And it's why, you know, when we think about Unrivaled, I think Unrivaled's great as a league. I think their model is great. I think the profit sharing and equity model is fantastic. One thing Unrivaled did not do well this year until Philadelphia is making media care about things beyond the kitschy, fun TikToks that the players love to do, because that's their experience and they get to do it on their terms. But 150,000 people are watching the games and the novelty's worn off from a TV perspective. You get everybody back in Philly because there's a novelty of coming to Philly. But what are you doing after that? You know, and that's where the PA, I think, has messed up, is like, you needed media to continue to hammer them every freaking day, and you didn't do that. You let the offseason come, and I feel like there was a desire, understandably, to for the players to just live their lives while all this goes on. Nah, brother. Because you know what? When you look at SAG-AFTRA and you look at the Writers Guild strike and all that stuff, while I don't think you needed to draft in like Caitlin or Asia or Angel to like be on the front lines, when the WGA was striking or when SAG was striking, who was out front? Mark Ruffalo and the A-list actors. And they were there every damn day. They were on the line every damn day. And that's what the WNBPA has not done well here. They have let the WNBA dictate the terms of this negotiation from a media standpoint. And that, I think, is where, if you're going to lay anything on their feet, that's where you lay it, because I think they fucked up. I think it's getting late and we're going to get a stoppage. And I think that's because you did not apply the screws enough when they weren't doing anything. You should have had a fucking countdown clock on your Instagram. It has been 17 days. It's been 18 days. It's been 37 days. It's been 71 days since the WNBA responded to what it is we're doing. You needed to keep this stuff in the ether for people that aren't dyed-in-the-wool WNBA fans. Yeah. And I think they relied on the dyed-in-the-wool WNBA fans too much. And to be frank, we are lifelong women's basketball fans. Sure. Part of what we do at No Cap Space is getting people involved in the game that are just coming in and being the people to say, let's give you a hand and bring you into the history and bring you into the game and educate you on all of these things. We're not enough, dog. We are not enough. We are great, and I will put No Cap Space's work up against any outlet in the country when it comes to women's basketball and the quality of journalism. But we do not have the First Take platform. We do not have the New York Times' platform. And if I'm the PA, I would have been hammering those people, those media outlets every single day until they had to say something. And then we end up here where it feels like, once again, the PA is scrambling. And while they have a plan, what you do in the press matters. And they are starting to lose some of that battle a little bit in terms of public perception, because now that we're here and people are ready to face the chaos of what is to come, guess what? They want the order of the WNBA back. They want the order of the management back, because the PA hasn't shown There will be order if we do it our way. There will be organization if we do it our way. There will be structure if we do it our way. Now it just seems like you want the revolution, but you don't want to build the government afterwards. And you can't do that shit. Any scholar of history will tell you that when you don't have a plan to build the government, you end up with a failed state. You don't end up with the United States of America, even with all of our problems notwithstanding. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But the point is like they haven't given us a vision of what a world looks like with the CBA that they think is good. And the fact that you haven't sold that dream to anybody, that is a problem to me. That's a problem to me.
Let me ask you one question before we officially move on to the NCAA. The idea of a strike now versus and this is hindsight now looking back on it some, and I think it kind of echoes your point in terms of the momentum that the players had, because as we kind of came over into 2026 and like the CBA was expiring and like we had the initial extension and then kind of extended on the basis of just like good faith and acting on that and just going with the CBA, would a strike then have been potentially the better move in terms of maybe trying to keep that momentum alive and that be the public conversation if you're not going to do that? Like, I don't know the answer. I'm genuinely intrigued by what you think on that.
I think it's a no-win, honestly, because if you strike too early, the WNBA utilizes their media machine to say these uppity women are not, coming to the table and acting in good faith. And we know what occurs when you start to affix those types of monikers to women of color who primarily are comprising the tip of the spear of this labor action, right? I mean, it's Nneka Ogwumike and it's Nafisa Collier. Like, yes, Brianna Stewart's commented. Yes, Caitlin Clark has commented. But the people that are leading this charge are primarily women of color. And so being cognizant of how media can be weaponized against that group, I can see why, if you were the WNBPA, you wanted to wait and you wanted to say, we want to give them the absolute most
every opportunity.
Time. Yes. But the thing is, where they fucked up is like, you can't do that and not alert people to where
that you're
are
doing
in this
that
process. Yes. You have to keep people aware of the process, because it has been, like this response from the WNBA this past, week and change. It came after almost a month and a half, 2 months of sitting on a proposal.
And we didn't fully know that, frankly. Like,
you hit it right on the head.
And like even us have no idea. As people that are very tapped in, like, I don't know if we fully understood the grasp of the unresponse. It felt like conversation had slowed in terms of like we weren't getting like things leaked out. I don't think we even fully know to the degree of lack of response that it actually truly was. It felt like conversations were stalling, but not that they weren't being had at all. And that's what we were actually experiencing and really had no idea.
And it speaks to the challenge ahead for the PA, which is, I think, a challenge they've had since Caitlin and Angel came into the league, which is you're a lot bigger now than you realize. I do think the PA sometimes still lives under the belief that there are, maybe 1 million fans countrywide that are into this shit. And the ratings are showing, man, that number is probably like closer to 5, probably 10 when you add in college basketball too, like people that support women's college basketball. Like, it's not a small audience anymore. And instead of tailoring your message to the terminally online 10-year Twitter veterans of WNBA Twitter, you got to tailor a message to the casuals, man. They don't follow you every day. They don't know any of this shit. And so, I get the strategy of waiting till the very last moment, because what you are doing by pushing that forward is saying these people, the WNBA owners and the NBA and the private equity that is around with them, they are willing to burn this whole motherfucker down than just give us what we owed and negotiate in good faith. That's the message. And it's a good message and it's a good strategy. What did you do to build that message for the last 2.5 months outside of saying it a couple of times here and there?
Yeah.
You haven't. And that to me is like, I don't think, and this is going to be a crude way of saying it. Like, I don't think you need to blow your load by doing the strike early and making that a story, because that allows them to outflank you and say,
yeah, that makes sense.
well, we've been the ones in good faith. They're
Sure.
the ones that are
Sure.
trying to strike so early. Who the hell are they to do this? Right. They
Yeah.
just want to fuck the whole thing up. Whereas like there was a way to do this, and you know, putting my media cape on and putting my media cap on, part of this is the end result of a league that just does not understand what the role of media is. You know, like this all ties into pulling shit like locker room access and doing things like wondering what our utility is in the entire enterprise and thinking that you can circumvent that through your own media channels. I got news for y'all. You can't, because the audience of No Cap Space is not Paige Becker's TikTok audience. It's not Caitlin Clark's TV audience. It might not be the biggest audience in the world, but it's an audience of people that are getting their information in a completely different way.
Yeah.
With a completely different set of talking points and a completely different set of discussions. And you have to understand that all of it matters. All of it matters. And you cannot do this without us. And like, that's not to make us sound more important. It's that like the strategy of what you do in order to win this, knowing the entity that you are up against, there needed to be a little bit more planning in the last couple of months. Yeah. I don't think momentum's going to fall apart. I think the minute they roll the ball back out, we're going to be just fine. Yeah. However, I do think that there was some momentum for the PA that's been lost over the last couple months, and they're going to have to find it. And I don't know how you do, because now we're entering the territory of either you got to strike or you got to eat it. And that's a position where players will have schisms and owners will have schisms. We heard the information this week. Sophie Cunningham said that in her estimation, the Liberty, the Seattle Storm, and the Phoenix Mercury were some of the ownership groups that she surmised were on, the side of being a little bit more progressive. It wouldn't shock me if there were other owners in that group, like a Mark Davis, for instance, who's kind of been in the same camp as a Joe Tsai of the Liberty, that he wants to move this forward a little bit. There's probably others, like a Chicago Sky, that are probably on the opposite realm of this. People within the NBA, like a James Dolan, who doesn't have an ownership stake in the Liberty anymore, but is an owner by proxy of the NBA's ownership of the league, who is also probably pushing for this to say, absolutely not. We're not giving you a dime for shit, because he's a dumb, chuddy idiot and missed out and sold the team before the windfall came, because he's such a big brain fucking genius. Like, you think I'm still mad about his ownership of the Liberty? But we're hitting a work stoppage, and either one. But we're probably going to hit a work stoppage. I think it's time for the WNBA or the WNBPA to come down and say, you know what, 25% on the gross rev or 75 to 80% on the net, and just see where the WNBA decides to go with it. And then you'll have your answer about if you're going to have to squeeze every single dime out of the net revenue, or nothing, then maybe you might have to squeeze every possible dime out of the net revenue or nothing. Or, you settle with the league on 20 to 25% of the gross. Yeah. If you can do that, sign the papers and let's play ball.
Let's hoop. Andrew, I think the one big piece that we're missing here, have we considered that they're now getting free league pass? Have we considered how important this is to everything here?
I will say, as the stoner package is pretty dope.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah. No marijuana drug tests and free league pass.
Let's go, dude.
That's the stoner package for
Nights
the WNBA,
in are about
baby.
to be lit. League pass.
I'll sign that part of the PA, boy. No pot drug testing and WNBA league pass.
No cap one, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds like a weekend night in July for me anyway. Me and No Cap White.
That's in the No Cap CBA. That's what we all signed. Oh, that's funny. Okay, swift pivot. We're pivoting harshly into the NCAA here. I am intrigued by this because, don't you worry, Andrew, I have the clip here. When it comes to having this quote from Kim Caldwell. And this is interesting to say the least. And I there's been a lot of conversation about it, and rightfully so.
So lay this context out before you play it. This is Tennessee head coach Kim Caldwell talking after the Lady Vols lost to South Carolina. Our own Shawnee Powell, boots on the ground in Columbia. why you should subscribe to No Cap Space WBB on newsletter channels like Beehive and on YouTube as well, because you get access to this stuff before anybody does, mind you. But this
Absolutely.
Kim Caldwell was asked about what she saw
So
today.
what's funny enough is I, if I'm not mistaken, this is actually the opening statement. If I'm not mistaken.
Oh shit, I didn't know that.
I might be putting words in my mouth here, but I'm fairly certain this is the opening statement, because you hear there's extra questions that come after this.
A lot of quitting us tonight, and that's been something that's been consistent with our team is we're not comfortable and things don't go our way, and I have a team that'll just quit on you, and you can't do that in big games. You can't do that anytime in the SEC, but you certainly can't do that at a program like this.
Buddy. I mean, here's the thing, and here's where I'm conflicted with this. Okay. I had the same thought during the game where I'm seeing Tennessee players and I'm like, go get the rebound. Why? What does that pass? Like, I mean, they quit.
They did.
She's not wrong. However, I don't know if this is the way to go about it, and that is the balance that I have been trying to kind of strike here in my final opinion on this, because again, I can't emphasize this enough. She's not wrong. I don't think that she's wrong. I don't think that you've seen the player leadership on this team in the way that was necessary in these big games against UConn, against South Carolina. You have two historical losses to your two biggest rivals currently in the modern day. I mean, if there was ever a time to be flagrant in the media, if you will, it's after these two losses, frankly. And so we talked about this a lot on the live, so I'm gonna lob it up to you here. But I don't think she's wrong. I don't know if she's right about the way that she went about handling the way that she aired this out in this way. Where are you at with it?
She doesn't have the credibility to do it yet.
That's the point.
I think that's what it comes down to for me. Gino Auriemma can be like, our team is so bad we should walk into the ocean.
And everyone's like, that's Gino.
Gino's going to get shit for that. But Gino's in his 60s and has so many national championship trophies that it's like, okay, if Gino says it, we listen. Right. Yeah. Look, dog, I feel for Kim Caldwell. I do. This season has been a fucking horror show from the very beginning. I mean, keep in mind, this Tennessee season started with your best player getting kicked off the team. You know? And to which I don't necessarily think she was wrong for jettisoning Ruby Whitehorn, because what happened initially was, Ruby Whitehorn gets into trouble with the law, and Tennessee kind of does what a lot of these teams have been doing, what LSU did with Mikayla Williams, what South Carolina's done with Ashton Watkins, and said, hey, we don't know what's going on yet. There's a lot of different perspectives here. These are still kids. These are still young women. There are still mistakes that can be made here. Nobody was harmed. There are things within those conversations, especially when you start getting into some of the other stuff where, personally, my tack with a lot of this stuff is, if you have those type of off-court issues, you don't touch the floor until the legal matter is resolved. That's just me, though. I know that, some other people might not think that way or believe it. Might believe it to be too punitive initially. But Ruby Whitehorn was a 2-strike policy. It was fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. She got in trouble again. Now, do I think that the traffic stop, which was for a negligible amount of weed in Knoxville, Tennessee, was a little over the top? Yeah, a little bit when you're driving I-24 in Tennessee and they're advertising cannabis on the fucking highway.
Look, you heard the No Cap CBA.
Listen, man, when I drive from Nashville to Chattanooga, they're advertising Snapdragon cannabis on billboards all the way up to Chat. There's a culture in East Tennessee of cannabis, putting weed in drinks, cannabis drinks. That's the thing that exists out in some of these Appalachian cities on the east side of the state. So do I think it was overly punitive to do it? Yes, but it wasn't about the fact that you got popped a little bit of weed in the car. It was the fact that
it's the second time
you got done up on twice by the police. And that's why you got thrown off the team, right? And so you're opening the year with your second or third best player already out in a very 50-50 manner, mind you, too. Like, this was not a situation of 2 strikes on some very objectively bad stuff where your teammates could be like, yeah, that sucks, but like,
you did it, you know, like,
run up and get done up. You know what I
yeah.
mean? This is more of a situation where like I'll do some digging while I'm down here and like into the off season. But to be honest, I'm curious if that set the tone for the year with the players, because if it's that much of a 50-50, the way the fan base felt it was a 50-50 on keeping Ruby Whitehorn or letting her go, you damn well know it was a 50-50 in that locker room. And there was no place for Kim Caldwell to have the right answer there. There wasn't, because you either have to set a cultural standard of you can't get arrested twice in a month when you're already on probation and stay on the team, or you run the risk of looking like the villain, right? So like, there's no winning in that situation. And then on top of that, you know, you're still a young coach. Like, these are still growing pains. And this is, I think, the Tennessee problem here. Tennessee didn't do a good enough job priming their fan base for the fact that this was going to be a young coach and this shit was going to happen. Because it's always going to happen, bro. You think Pat Summitt never hemmed up anybody like this in a press conference in the early NCAA era? Like, Pat Summitt didn't win her first title until she had been coaching for like a decade. It took 4 to 5 years for the NCAA tournament's governance to kick in 82 before they won their first title in 87. Like, Pat is Pat. There is no doubt about that. But it took Pat a long while coaching before she became Pat, you know? And all of the growing pains that Pat experienced were happening during times when we didn't have phones and could put all of this stuff up. So, you know, while I think very highly of Kim Caldwell as a coach, I think as a schematic X's and O's coach, frankly, I think she's better than a lot of people give her credit for. I think watching how she has been able to change this year and not live and die by the platoon subs and not live and die by the constant pace, like not live and die by 5s and 5s. Like, she has shown she's not married to a system. Like, if she's got to tweak it to win, she'll tweak it to win. That's the mark of a good schematic coach. She's got to deal with and learn all the other stuff. And it's going to come down to how patient UT wants to be letting her grow through those things. Because look, at the end of the day, last year she beat the national fucking champion. And like, that's, if you really want to bring it down to brass tacks, what got Kelly Harper fired was she could never beat the teams that they wanted to beat. She could never do it when it mattered. And Kelly Harper ran a clean program, a good program, comported herself with dignity and composure and the status that the University of Tennessee women's basketball program demands of its head coach. But they got rid of her because she couldn't win. And they wanted to bring someone in who won. And Kim Caldwell has already done this. And Kim Caldwell's teams have the capability to do this. At the same time, don't bitch about players quitting on you. You recruited this fucking team. You got the trade. You brought in Janiyah Barker knowing full well, and not to harp on this one person individually, but this is the one player on this Tennessee team where there is a history of quitting on plays and quitting in game and quitting on teams and being, I don't want to use malcontent because that sounds more personal and I don't want to throw that on a 20-year-old, but a player that, if she is not firing on all cylinders, can get mentally taken out of games or taken out of what a program needs. Just go ask Corey Close in UCLA. There's a reason she left UCLA, man. Like, the program that is known for rehabilitating players and making them fall in love with basketball again. You couldn't make it work there. And that's who you brought in as your game changer. You know, and so I think this is a bad season learning experience for Kim Caldwell, and bad by UT Lady Vols standards, which is they'll probably end up in the Sweet 16 again.
It's a very real.
Like, they'll end up in the Sweet 16 and then they'll get smoked by 1 seed. But like, that to me is I think there's a humanity in what she's doing and the frustration she is feeling. But the issue is, and this has always been the issue with Tennessee, who are the people in the program that maintain the institutional knowledge beyond Pat was Pat and you are not? The best programs are ones where people survive within the institutional culture and bring that somewhere else. If you look at college football, for instance, right? Curt Cignetti is as good as he is at Indiana because Curt Cignetti took pieces of process from Nick Saban's Alabama and from his own father at IUPUI, which his father or his uncle, excuse me, is Frank Cignetti Sr. And the thing that I think Tennessee does not have right now, who are the institutional voices in the building? Who are the 40-year people in the building? Do you have support staff that have been there for a long ass time? Because when Mario Cristobal went to the University of Miami for football, one of the first things he did was he brought back Arqueo, who is like, he was an instrumental part of the University of Miami's program. He brought everybody back into the fold to remind people of a culture that had been built here. And it wasn't just Mario saying, I was here, so I know how to do it, so I'm going to do it. There's also people that remember what this was like that we're going to bring in, and we're going to make sure that they have an understanding without turning it into Game of Thrones, where it's like, I have more allegiance to the past coach and the past culture than I do to you. So you are always going to be held to an unrealistic standard. Kim Caldwell needs to find the people within the University of Tennessee's apparatus that want to support Tennessee and support her at the same time. And UT's issue that I worry about is because Pat is so venerated, I worry about creating a program that is built around keeping everybody here so Pat can stay up here. And that is where the difficulty comes in, because if you run off Kim Caldwell here, you've lost the ability to tell young coaches you're going to have the time and the runway to do this. And frankly, there's not enough highly elite coaches that you can pull one from a Power 5 at this point, because NIL is what it is to such a degree. Dawn Staley's never leaving South Carolina for Tennessee. And there is no other, to me, like there is no other seismic coaching hire that's out there that you can pull from somewhere else. Corey Close isn't leaving UCLA. You know, Lord knows Gino's not leaving UConn. Maybe Shea Ralph leaves Vandy, but if she leaves Vandy, it's going to be for UConn. It's not going to be for you, the in-state rival. Forget about it. Plus, Vandy right now, flush with NIL money. A huge amount of money is going into Vanderbilt athletics on the NIL and rev share side. So she has no reason to walk away from it. She's got 3 more years of Mikayla Blakes and 4 more years of Aubrey Galvin. So there isn't another coach that is out there that you can say, oh, Kim Caldwell should be on the hot seat. This to me is just one of those years where you as an athletic director and Danny White, you have to go and find, even if it's a Candace Parker, someone who's going to shoot you deadly straight and tell you you're fucking up when you're fucking up, you have to find that person to be that person for Kim Caldwell, to say, look, you're not Pat. You don't have to be Pat, first and foremost. But also, you have to, know that these are mistakes and learn from them. Because I do think there is a little bit of Kim trying to be Pat going on here. And I don't blame her for that. This woman's I'm almost Kim Caldwell's age, dog. Like, she's maybe 4 years older than me, tops. I'm 31. I can't imagine running like that'd be like saying in 3 years, okay, Andrew, go be the head coach of Duke men's basketball. Fuck am I gonna do? I don't know shit about fuck, And so I think Kim is trying to live up to that standard, right? Coming back from maternity leave almost immediately because Pat had her kid, had Tyler Summit on a flight and said, I got to hold this kid in until until we get into Tennessee, because I don't want this kid born in Kentucky airspace. Like, there's little things like that where I feel like she's trying to channel her, but it's not the same era for you to do that. And when Pat could get away with it, Pat had skins on the wall. And you got to get skins on the wall. And one win over UConn last year is not enough for you to channel Pat in press conferences.
That's what it's again, I don't think that she's wrong, but we gotta build up to this. I think is the big thing. Let me ask you this. We'll continue on to our next topic. What coaches could easily get away with that?
Gino.
Maybe Gino?
Dawn. Because Dawn does this too, low key. You pointed this out. Dawn sits down. That's Dawn's they quit.
It's in the game. That OU game, that entire second half, she did not stand up. That is her way of saying, all right, y'all got it.
Yeah.
Figure it out. And oftentimes it works because you're the death machine. Hey, I'm not knocking it by any means, but that is kind of her signal to her team in this way, where you don't have this media aspect to it. She would never do this in the media in this way. I mean, she got asked about it after and was like, "What advice would you do?" She's like, "I wouldn't do that publicly." I was like, "Oh yeah, fair enough."
Yeah,
but it's different. It's the same but different. I think easily Gino and Dawn, Mulkey's a bit different in the sense that I think people give Mulkey a lot for what she says in the media. A lot of times it's earned, frankly, but it never really matters,
but she also doesn't do this to her players publicly.
Not
Kim is very noteworthy for having a litany of dumb shit that she says in front of the media. It's pretty rare she goes after individual players like that.
Yeah. I don't disagree. Because then even when I get into like the next tier, right? Corey, Vic, I don't think that I think
Vic's a maybe.
I'm about to say Vic is one where I'm like, I could see it. Corey to me.
No.
Yeah, I don't think you could.
They don't call her Kumbaya Corey because she's
that would just be so out of left field.
Yeah,
that would just be so out of left field that it would feel weird more than anything. Vic has just been in the game and like that. I think that to a degree, like that experience is a stamp of some sort, but not to the degree of. It's a very clear difference between the three we just listed and then anyone below them.
Well, and to your point, there's a wide chasm between like calling out your team and saying we have to get better versus saying like my team quit, my team are quitters.
And we do this,
it's not even saying we quit.
Yeah.
To me, I think the operative word that sent everyone into such tizzy over this was the word quitter, because there's a lot of coaches that'll get on in a dais and say, yeah, we quit tonight.
Yeah. No, 100%.
And we'll get better. But
consistent nobody team
nobody calls their team quitters in a fucking
a lot of us quitting a lot of quitting us tonight, and that has been something that is consistent with our team. That's how you bat leadoff. Like, holy shit. That's insane.
Yeah. I mean, it's no, Kelly Graves wouldn't even do that. Kelly's trademark is if he's got to jack his team up, he'll get a tech. Like he'll argue with the refs and get a tech. He's not like he does that. It's very rare. He does it like maybe once a season. I think really the only person left is Gino, and I don't even think Gino would do it because Gino a couple weeks ago,
he's very
the Tennessee game,
yeah,
dude. In the Tennessee game, he was saying like he has stopped yelling in halftime. Like he's stopped yelling at kids because it
pretty,
doesn't work.
Like open about the changes. Like he's fiending to do it again. Like
he's like, I'm ready.
He's itching.
Like the Goblin Mask.
He's itching. So like he's been very, very open about the changes.
Muffet McGraw would have done this.
Yeah.
But again,
that's Muffet.
It's first ballot fucking statue outside of Notre Dame. Muffet McGraw. Yeah.
We're talking statue status to be able to fully get away with this unscathed, essentially. Like, some people have a problem with it, but unscathed, we're talking statue status. So this is.
And to be clear, I don't think that she's going to face any repercussions.
No, I don't think so either.
But I do think like somebody has to pull her aside and be like, one, you haven't earned the right to do that yet. Two, you built this team, and I'm sure nobody feels stupider than she does right now because to be honest, it wouldn't shock me with the schedule they have ahead. Oh, dog, they could get
bad.
This is either going to go one of two ways. Either they're going to lock the hell in, or this is going to be a fucking disaster the rest of the season. There's no in between.
Like there is, as crazy as it sounds, like, dude, I don't know. Like, there's a real chance that like we're talking like bubble team by the end of the season if they could go that poorly. Like that is like not like that is not out of the question with how poorly like this could go and given their schedule and everything. So
and what's wild to me is that the third quarter against UConn, like up until that third quarter,
dude,
You're great.
Dude, go back to halftime of that UConn game. If you like tell me this now, it's like, oh yeah, they're about to lose this game by a historical margin, then they're going to go to South Carolina and lose that game by a historical margin, and then the season's going to be potentially over based on one comment. I'd be like, what do you mean they're tied with UConn at halftime?
You're like, what the hell happened?
What could have
who blew out their
happened?
knee? Who got shot? Like,
Dude,
oh my God.
Dude, like what could have possibly happened to allow this? Yet this is why we love the world of women's basketball. You never know. To continue on here to our last topic, we want to touch on some of these national player of the year discussions. You got to see Mikayla Blakes live in person. She did okay against Oklahoma, I guess. And we can have the freshman conversation as well if we'd like. But the National Player of the Year conversation, I think is maybe heated up to its highest extent right now with the game of 30+ point, the streak that Mikayla Blakes has on. I believe 3 games in a row now with 30+ points for Mikayla Blakes. She continues to get it done. Certainly, you mentioned you'll be boots on the ground for Texas Vandy. That's a game that can absolutely be like the statement, plant the flag game in terms of Mikayla Blakes National Player of the Year conversation and her case to make. We've run into similar things before when it comes to the race that we have here. I think we pretty clearly have the best player in the country in Sarah Strong, and you have the player that means the most to their program in Mikayla Blakes, who is also, at worst, the 3rd best player in the country. At worst.
At worst, yeah.
At worst, right? And that's a very open, that's a dialogue. Where do voters, I think that this is going to become a thing of what voters value most. Because again, you have Sarah Strong. That is on, like, when you're watching Sarah Strong, that is the best player in the country. I don't think that is the argument to be made here.
Easily.
I mean, that is crystal clear. But who are they playing? How long is she playing? Like, all those type of things come in. And I feel like kind of nasty making this argument because I just spent the last NBA season telling everyone that SGA is the MVP because he doesn't have to play in the 4th quarter because they get it done early. But it's different in college when you're talking about the conferences and the competition and things like that, where Mikayla Blakes has pretty much shown up every game. There hasn't been many where she has had a dud by any means. And even her duds are still like 15+ point games, and like still being impactful. Getting to see Mikayla in person, you heard from Shay Ralph in the post game. I would love to know your thoughts. I've gotten to see Mikayla play in person before. It's an absolute treat watching her hoop. Where are you leaning on this? Are you leaning best player? Are you leaning most impactful? Like, where do we go with this award here?
It's tough, honestly, because I think you're right. Like, brother, Sarah Strong is the best player in college basketball. Is
game breaking. Like, it's like it's
yeah, man. Like I know we joke the Jokic comparisons, and like I know everyone kind of has their own opinion about comping women's players to men's players.
That's the only
I think
one that
Sarah
even...
Strong, exactly. I think Sarah Strong is a unique player in the sense that, like, I can't find an analog.
It doesn't exist
for a player that big, that skilled, that is that good of a passer. Also contains the ability to score at 3 levels. I mean, it's the progression of Asia. And that's where I think people have to, scrape and find the Jokic comparison, because she's an evolutionary player. Caitlin Clark is the same way. Caitlin is not a player that you can necessarily comp, because Caitlin is an evolution unto herself, right? Sarah Strong is an evolution unto herself. And I think that's the hard thing with her versus Blakes, right? And this is like, it's almost like the 2024 Heisman Trophy between Travis Hunter and Ashton Genty, where it's like Ashton Genty is the player that fits an archetype, right? He fit the archetype of volume running back who you gave him the ball 25 times a game and just let him fucking go. And he runs for 2,600 yards and 29 touchdowns. Travis Hunter is an evolutionary player in college football and one we hadn't seen for a very long time, not at that skill level, playing two sides of the ball. And so, what you end up voting on is the fact that it's just a guy you don't see often. And I think that's where Sarah Strong comes in, is like, with Sarah Strong, much like Travis Hunter, like, you got to throw out the numbers of an individual position because your eyes are the thing that like it is an eye test thing. Whereas Mikayla Blakes falls a little bit more into like your typical guard Juju-ish.
Yeah, we've seen this case. Like,
yes,
it's unique with like Mikayla. Not to say that Mikayla isn't special in like what she's doing, but we've seen this case before.
But I can feel good comping Mikayla Blakes to Kelsey Mitchell.
Sure,
like I can feel like I can make that type of comparison.
Sure.
And be like, it's within the realm, and I don't feel like I'm disrespecting the sport because I can't find a comp for her within it. I see Kelsey Mitchell in Mikayla Blakes, maybe a little bit of a refinement, with a couple more years in college, but I see Kelsey Mitchell there. I don't know what within the game break, I don't know what I'm looking at.
It melts my mind. And like, dude, watch Sarah Strong handle the Tennessee pressure and just like dribble through it. She's like just dribbling behind her back. And like, I'd argue, like, we make the Jokic comp. I think there's a real potential that Sarah Strong's more game breaking than what we're seeing with Jokic, because the athleticism is even better. Like, so you have everything. You know what I mean? So like, what we're seeing with Sarah Strong, I've always been able, like, my case I've always made with these when I'm trying to decide awards and when they're individual awards, it's stats, it's story, it's standings, and like those have always been the kind of the three things I go in and check within those. And both these players in different ways have such great cases through both. Like, I'm not gonna be mad at whoever wins this, but I do, man. I don't even know if I had a vote. I think I lean Blakes, but like, I don't know, dude. I really don't.
Here's what's hard. Mikayla Blakes is fighting the fact that she hasn't had like a so-called Heisman moment yet, in the way that Juju had last year, Caitlin had in the years prior. In 2021, Sabrina won, right? Like, Sabrina had those moments. She had a moment before the season even started when Team USA is doing their Olympic tour, and she hits a 30-foot three, like dagger three over Diana. And, we memory hole that because of, the Kobe stuff and how that related to her, but also COVID robbed us of the tournament. But like, that was a moment. That was that was a Caitlin Clark-ish kind of moment, because people were like, holy fuck, what is this? You know? And I think Mikayla Blakes, Vanderbilt, bouncing out of the tournament early to Oregon, I guess, wildly enough. Yes, it was Oregon. Getting bounced by Oregon in the second round of the tournament last year robbed us of the opportunity to see Mikayla Blakes as the next person. Whereas Juju is a freshman. Juju's taking her team deep. And so that, I think, is, we might lose out on a Mikayla Blakes National Player of the Year run because we haven't gotten like the mainstream pull. But I'll tell you this, man, the first opportunity, at least in my opinion, was yesterday. I think that was for the dyed-in-the-wool women's basketball fans who will tune in because they want to see Mikayla Blakes versus Aaliyah Chavez and like kind of follow the Chavez hype on the back end of that overtime performance she had in Norman against South Carolina. You see Mikayla Blakes just run over Oklahoma completely. Now you're going to get Texas. And Texas, I think, is building the momentum, right? Stephen A. Smith is tweeting about Rory Harmon. Matthew McConaughey is tweeting about Rory Harmon. Now you have the NFL season is over. Now everyone is looking for the next place to go. And frankly, I think a lot of the national media more or less is kind of punted on men's college basketball. I just, I think that, look, women's basketball may have its issues with the portal and such, but like, we're not bringing in G Leaguers to play college ball. You know what I mean? And so I think from a delineation standpoint of people who have been fans of basketball that are older than you or I are, and remember the time of college basketball being kind of somewhat traditional in that sense, it's a hard sport to get behind now on the men's side. Whereas on the women's side, there is at least a little bit more consistency, that there is a feel of college basketball in this. Texas has the juice coming into this matchup here. If Mikayla Blakes turns around against this Texas defense and drops 37, yeah, man, we're going to have a real conversation because Sarah Strong's not going to be on anyone's TV screen until March.
Yeah.
Now you're going to have this discussion about what matters where, especially given the fact that Mikayla Blakes is the leading scorer in the country. She's averaging 25.9 points per game. She's had back-to-back-to-back 30-point performances. First time in her career that she's done that. And here's the thing that I think, if you are going to burnish credentials for a National Player of the Year discussion, to me at least, I'm looking at one particular stat column dating back to December 28th, and that's assists. Because if the knock on her is she can score, but what else does she do? I'll read you the assist numbers here from this most recent game against Oklahoma all the way back to February 28th, and they're not done. 6-4, 8-4, 5-5, 4, 7-5, 6, 4, 8, 7.
That'll play.
Like if you're a player that's averaging like 25 and 6, I mean, I can't do the napkin math right now, but I mean, the averages since we turned the corner into January in SEC play, the gear she's found in this conference has been astounding. Totally astounding.
Yeah.
It's hard. Here, like, I don't think there's a third in here. I think this is a 2-person race, at least right now. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think at this point, obviously Audie Crooks was there at the beginning. I think AZ had a reasonable case to make. I'll tell you the stat that I think when you look at if you're looking at the box score over the season, that will make it where you can't ignore Sarah Strong. She's on pace to potentially get 60, 40, 90.
That's outrageous.
She's at 39% from 3 right now.
What are her splits? What's her
It
stats?
it is right. I will go pull it up directly. Hold on.
Because I'm crunching
I will go pull
Blakes'
this up
numbers right
directly.
now on the fly to see if I can do this. Like,
we're doing this right now. 60.1% from the field, 39.4% from 3 on 3.9 attempts per game, 90.9% from free throw. No player has ever gone 60, 40, 90.
60, 40, 90 is pretty.
If she gets 60, 40, 90,
I think, yeah, I think at that
out.
point it's got to be a consensus. You got
and it's crazy that
point.
It's crazy that less than a percentage point potentially on 3-point percent it might make the difference there, but that's how narratives go. Frankly, that's how this works. So that, but if she gets 60, I want that 60, 40, 90, dude. That's one of the greatest seasons we've ever seen.
And it's one of these things. It's one of these issues. I think with the media environment is different now when it pertains to as it pertains to women's basketball. We've joked about it on the show of the UConn industrial complex, right? I don't know if it can operate the same, in the same way anymore. Maybe it can, but can you overcome this? Look at Vandy's schedule the rest of the way out. Number 4, Texas. Georgia, who's fighting for their NCAA tournament life. Kentucky, Alabama, Tennessee. Top 25, top 25, top 25. And then you're bound to see South Carolina or Texas again.
Yeah.
Come the SEC.
You're going to have, if you
have another game like
deep,
that.
Yeah.
And right now, I got the math done on what she's done since January 1st. She's averaging 28, 3, and 6.
That'll do.
That'll
do.
Yes,
yeah.
the 60, 40, 90 there exists and it is valid and true and correct. But if you're, now you're talking about someone who's entering at 28 points per game, you're talking about someone who's in juju territory now. And it's okay, well, what do you do with that?
Yeah.
How do
especially given the SEC. And I think that both the trajectory of the conversation about each conference is going to play a big role here. Because it feels like the general conversation, at least, when I see, just if I'm scrolling social media, everyone's talking about how damn good the SEC is. I mean, SEC's hit records for the amount of teams in the AP poll. I think it was 10, the most that a conference has ever had. No one's ever had 10 at once in the poll earlier this season. And then you look at the Big East in a down year across the board, pretty much outside of UConn. And I think that might mean more in this race than when we've had these conversations, because we've had this, we've been here before with UConn players, frankly. We've been here before. But I don't know if we have seen maybe this far a divide between whatever the Big East talking point is and whatever conference is being, put against it in the National Player of the Year conversation in this way. So I think that's going to hold weight once we start tallying the votes and everything. And I don't have a vote. I'm glad I don't, frankly, this year, because this is I'm happy to sit back and judge. I'm happy to sit back here because I don't know what to do with this. And what a luxury that is for us as fans, frankly, to have two players. Like, the fact that Sarah Strong has competition is ridiculous. Like it is. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's actually like the competition should have been easy fun. Like, it should have been, okay, who's the best player on this team? Yep. And Mikayla Blakes has made this a true 2-player race. And that is phenomenal in its own right. Like, because again, we throw generational around, we talk about trajectories. Sarah Strong, but we mean it. Like that, it can never ring more truth than when you're talking about Sarah Strong. So to have a player that is at that level, to have this conversation and it be like valid and be true, and like I genuinely don't know, it's awesome. And I'm very jealous that you get to see that Texas Vanderbilt game in person.
Oh, it's gonna be great.
Boots on the ground. Yeah,
the boots are gonna be walking. By the way, Mikayla Blakes versus SEC opponents this year averaging 29 points per game. Dude. And that's with the meat. That's like against the meat of the SEC too. Like, that's not.
They're past the hardest parts, really. Yeah, they have ranked opponents still, but like
for sure. But like, you played LSU, South Carolina, Oklahoma, and you're gonna get Texas.
And we'll see what happens against Texas. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, again, we talk about moments. I would argue Juju's moment last year was that Battle of LA game.
Sure.
And I think she had an early season moment. As she had 2 early season moments last year, I think you could probably fairly argue. Let me go into the game log real quick and just while we're on the air, like, I might as well just look it up. Yeah, man, like last year, she's opens the season with 27-10 against Ole Miss. The one I was thinking of was the UConn game. They win 72-70, 25, 6-5 on 9-16 shooting. Then it's number 1 versus number 3 or whatever that matchup, that first Battle of LA matchup is that they won. And she's 38-11-5.
Yeah, while she's steals. Actively talking cash, like
actively talking cash, and then does it again, and then does it again. At the end of the year to win the regular season championship in Pauley. Yeah. 30 points, 5 assists. Actually, though. And, it again comes down to one of these things where if Mikayla Blakes has this kind of moment against Texas, how does that force us to recalibrate what we think about this player? The only thing that really is not working in her favor was South Carolina ran their ass off the floor.
Yep.
Because in that game, her stat line was solid.
It was kind of a y'all lost game, to be honest.
I mean, granted, she went 9-24, so not the most efficient shooting night from her, but that was not for lack of trying on her part to stay in with South Carolina. And as we saw with your own Aaliyah Chavez in the city of Norman, South Carolina is a standard bearer program. When you beat them, it matters. Just like when Juju beat UConn, it mattered. So Mikayla Blakes, like, this Texas game to me feels like the make or break for your National Player of the Year case. Because if you hoop here and you win and you pull within a game of South Carolina for the regular season lead, all right, now we can talk about this. But if you do another good yet semi-inefficient performance in a loss, well, now that's 2 against you, and now your motion's kind of deteriorating away from you and towards Sarah Strong. So Thursday feels like the matchup where if we know that this is gonna, like, if we think there's gonna be a race, it's gonna be decided on Thursday. Because if she comes out and puts up 30 spot on Thursday and they win, yeah, man, that's Shay. Shay's gonna be in that presser talking cash shit. You know who's gonna be the one egging her on in the presser like they did on Tuesday? ya boy. Because you want to go back and listen to that
Yeah.
Vanderbilt press conference? You know who asked Shea about Mikayla Blakes' National Player of the Year candidacy? Me.
He said, "Hi,
Because
me
I
again
am-
about that."
Literally, because I'm here for nothing but mess. I want drama. I want narratives, because that is our job, to bring it all the way back to center from the beginning of the podcast about what the role of what we do is in this game. It's not to talk shit about players. It's not to make messy narratives. It's occasionally to get under the hood, to do open records requests, to talk to sources and get the information that the fans want, and to narrative build.
Mhm.
That is what we're here for. If you don't have people that are there to build and celebrate your narratives in the sport, you are asking fans to do it on their own. And every fan has their own criteria for what they find is important. So what has been needed this year, and what I'm hoping this week provides us, is the on-ramp for media members who have had trouble figuring out what to build around this year, at least in the last month and change of the season, have something to build around.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm hoping we get out of Thursday, is the ability for people in the press outside of us. But that's why also you like, you share, you subscribe, and you tell a friend to tell a friend to sign up for the channel and the daily newsletter, which is free, by the way, to be able to build out the stories that end up mattering in March and April. When Ryan Rucco's on the call and gets to say, this player had to overcome or do this, that makes the payoff of a championship that much more necessary. It's crafted here. It's crafted in these moments, and it's crafted by people like, you and I, not tooting our own horns, but also other members of the media. We need these games, and we need to frame them in the proper way and in the right context so people can understand why they're important.
Yep.
And this game, important. Mikayla Blakes and the candidacy for National Player of the Year, it's real and it's important because you need foils, you need battles, you need Mikayla Blakes and Sarah Strong. You need that debate, because otherwise it gets a whole hell of a lot less interesting.
Yep.
And I'm here for the interest, because this sport is interesting and it deserves getting some coverage, and it deserves having people talk about it. So Thursday night, Texas Vandy, your boys in the building. So follow us for everything, because I'm going to be a pig in shit for basically the entire night.
It's going to be awesome. So not only are you going to be in the building, we'll have a preview dropping here on YouTube. We'll have a preview dropping for South Carolina LSU this weekend as well. Later this week, we'll be live after that game. There's so much going on in the best way possible. So make sure you're tapped in here on the YouTube. Like, subscribe, share, all that. If you're listening on podcast platforms, make sure you rate, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, anything of that nature. No Cap Space WBB.com as well. The free newsletter. Big word, free. A ton of content coming your way. And if you become a paid member, you get access to the Discord. You get access to additional content, whether it's here on the YouTube or on NoCapSpaceWBB.com. You can kind of pick what content you might be more interested in. Go check out both. Become a member. Join the Discord. Join the conversation. Until next time, after a very, very eventful episode of Ball Up Top, we'll talk to you very soon.